Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an electrifying and enlightening episode of LexDiscuss Podcast. Today, we are honored to have a distinguished guest on our show, none other than Brijesh Anand, the Regional General Counsel APAC at Andritz. With his vast experience and strategic acumen, Brijesh spearheads legal operations across the Asia-Pacific region, excluding China, ensuring seamless compliance and robust risk management. Brijesh's journey is marked by significant achievements and multifaceted roles within the legal landscape, making him a trusted advisor. Today, let's try to learn from his journey. So, Brijesh, thanks a lot for joining the podcast. For anyone who doesn't know you, who doesn't know what amazing legal maestro you are, would you like to give them a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. Abhi, thanks for having me. Thanks for taking the time on this podcast on this. Just to give an intro to people who don't know me, I'm a lawyer with around 20 years of experience now. I've been part of some of the bigger law firms. I've been part of, I started my legal journey as part of an external law firm, as part of, independent lawyers working with Delhi High Court to the Supreme Court, and thereafter with law firms. And then I moved in-house with Lanco Infratech, was an old company, if you guys still remember that. At that time, a very big company, one of the big companies that was happening that time. That was my first stint as an in-house counsel, where they were setting up their legal department in Delhi for their power sector division. And we were some of the early people who was given this responsibility to set up that. But I left that and again went to a law firm. I went to JSA and was there as part of their team. But it's been now almost 12 years that I've been in Andritz. Then I moved into Andritz. Andritz is a big corporate behemoth from Austria. We are a big manufacturing construction company with interests in hydropower, with interests in pulp and paper, feed technology. And there my role has grown. I've been there for 12 years now. Like I said, I joined as Chief Counsel India, as somebody who was looking at their work for India. And over a period of time, I've been given additional responsibilities, additional areas. I am now the Regional General Counsel for Asia Pacific region for Andritz. So my responsibilities include taking care of the legal needs of Andritz companies in Asia. By Asia, we mean South Asia, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and even parts of Japan, where we are giving legal support to our companies over there in all the four sectors in the sector of hydropower, pulp and paper, metals, feed technology, automation. So we're a very active player globally, and one of the few companies which has its regional offices in India and not in Singapore, not in Hong Kong, where you typically have large conglomerates having their regional office. In our company's case, we have the entire region being managed by me and my team sitting here in their corporate office in Delhi. We have lawyers in Indonesia and Australia as well who are part of the team, but the bulk of the work is done by the team in Delhi. In addition to legal, I take care of compliance, internal audit, and insurance departments for my company. And again, as global function, helping all business leaders or business interests of Andritz within this entire region. So that's, in brief, my journey over a period of 20 years.
Thanks a lot for that intro, Brijesh. And we'll go into your journey as an in-house counsel. Right. But I also want to go back and ask you, how was your experience working for JSA?
So it was a great experience. I think I was there not for very long. I was there for around a year and a half. And I was part of the X team. And there also I was looking at the power sector work. I'm typically a power sector projects lawyer, construction lawyer. Throughout my specialization has been a lot in the power sector, in infrastructure sector, in construction, EPC contracts, O&M business, and so on and so forth. And there, I think I joined JSA when, if you recall, the National Solar Mission was just starting to bid, and there were a lot of priorities coming up for the biddings under the National Solar Mission. And, we had these solar power plants being made in India. And one of our big learnings there was helping these companies, bid in these JNSM solar missions. And we were kind of early adopters for solar powers in that sense, helping a lot of companies set up the bids to vet their, the risks of, the bidding documents that were coming out from the government, because there were a lot of our clients, foreign clients who were wanting to bid in India. And there was a big regulatory, aspect around it with lots of complicated documents to see and, averse the risks. So that it was a great time, I think, for me to be in JSA, particularly because of all of these biddings happening at that time.
I wanted to start by asking why, do you feel like, the work culture at JSA is substantially better than like the big three firms or the now big four firms? But obviously you have worked at JSA, so you'll say that that's the case. But so I'll not ask that question. My question is, why do you think that's the case? Like, because I have like the privilege of, interning in JSA and meeting Jyoti Sagar sir himself personally. But why do you think like JSA is so different than the other big firms?
I think JSA is a firm with values. It works a lot in the client's interests, and it has a very nice and open culture, which percolates down from, you said, Jyoti Sagar, so for the partners, senior associates, and everyone. So it's a nice open culture which is there. Which, I mean, it would not be fair for me to say if the culture is not there in other firms.
Exactly, that's what.
Controversial topic. I'll try to not get it. But I think I can speak of JSA because I was there. It's a good firm which has a very nice collaborative open culture. And maybe that's the reason that people...
No, it's a controversial topic and most of the lawyers stay away from it. But my 2 cents on this is that the work culture in JSA is substantially better than the other firms. I can't take names, but that's the case. That's my experience. So now let me ask you a very serious question. What is the most boring part of your job?
That's your serious question.
Yeah, that's my serious question.
See, I think what you would have to understand, and because we were talking about JSA and my time as external lawyers also, when in-house counsel, I think there's a big distinction that we must always keep in mind as to what is the role and responsibilities of a lawyer when they are at a part of a law firm or are working from an outside-in basis as external consultant versus the role, expectation, and responsibilities of a lawyer when you're working with business as an in-house counsel, as counsel managing the business. You are much more integrated as part of the business team when you're part of a larger company. I'll give you an example. So we have very large EPC contracts world over, which are very niche and very structured, regulated contracts. And it is one thing to advise on these contracts when you are advising as an external consultant and give a markup and highlight maybe 20 risks. But as part of the business team, you know that these 20 risks would not be changed by if it's a public sector bidding, for example, or if it's a regulated environment where you are working. So a lot of these things that you can do as an external counsel with the luxury of knowing that it doesn't affect the business, or if it affects the business, I have done my job, I have given the risk. Versus an in-house counsel who has to live with this contract, with this business, and also has a stake in the company, not just highlighting risk, but mitigating risk, is something which is very different. Now, that's the distinction between the two roles. Along with this distinction comes the boring part. Sometimes what is boring is a lot of administrative work that comes apart from just, highlighting risks and apart from just marking up documents and reviewing contracts. You have to sometimes be part of meetings which have nothing to do with you, but you are part of that meeting because you're part of the business. We have the importance of legal increasing. I think a lot of in-house counsels and general counsels would say that they have to be part of certain meetings where their input is not required, but they have to be there. And I think it cuts both ways. It's boring, but it's essential also because that's how you understand the business better. That's how you give a much larger perspective to the work that you are doing. So I would say sometimes attending those meetings where you're not required, which you could easily avoid, but yet you have to attend a whole day project review meeting where there's no legal issue, but you're part of the team and then you are attending it, is sometimes boring as lawyers.
Right. Yeah, couldn't agree more with you. But that brings me to the interesting question. What do you think, in your opinion, is the boring job, which is not essential as well? Like the administrative work you mentioned.
Correct. Boring essentially is what is not your strength, to be very honest. One of the primary reasons why I left law firms was there was too much emphasis on bringing business, for example, once you reach at a certain position of a partner. Right. And for someone that may be very exciting. For someone like me, it was not that exciting. So it became boring. I mean, in that sense, that part was boring, that I'm not so much applying my mind on the contracts or on the work, but I have to see what the client is asking. I have to get more work. I have to, those kind of administrative part which comes there. So these are the parts which get boring, depending on, and I would say there's no one boring part for anybody. Somebody else might enjoy this. Somebody else might consider it to be boring. And in my case, for example, as an in-house counsel, like I told you as a general counsel, the boring part is sometimes too many administrative things where you are not directly impacting or receiving, but you are just because you're part of the board, you're part of the risk management committee, you're part of an essential business chain that you have to be there.
Right. That's yeah. I can completely relate to that. So, do you enjoy reading those long bidding documents that project lawyers have to go through?
I think enjoy is not the right word, but I think if you are a projects lawyer, if you're a construction lawyer, if you're anybody who's doing work in infrastructure space, this is an essential part. You cannot ignore that. And I would say it's not just the part that many times what we see as long contracts doesn't get over there, because for a contract which is of 200 page and we think it's long, it's just one of the part of the many transaction documents. Unfortunately, in infrastructure space, it will have a 2,000 page technical specifications.
Right.
Which will also have implications on commercial documents that you are reviewing as lawyer, and therefore you have to read those as well. And that is a part that is really something that you have to read. Even though you're not an engineer, you have to go through these 2,000 pages of drawings and technical specifications, because you might have used the word final acceptance in your commercial docs, and you're writing something else. You've got liquidated damages provision, which may be contrary completely in one of these technical specifications, opposed to what was written in the conditions of contract. So yeah, I think it's not just enjoying or not enjoying, but that's where I think AI is really helping. We are really looking forward to a good summarization, good taking out of clauses. So you don't have to actually go through the 2,000 pages of technical specifications, but if you can give a command to AI and that AI can take out that these are the risky provisions, these are the things which talk about limitation of liability, or they talk about liquidated damages, or penalties and guarantees, that the task would become much easier. But right now, yes, it is a long task to read all those things.
Yeah, we also look forward for that future, because I worked in projects department for some time and it was really boring for me. So we have heard so many good things about Andritz when it's come to adopting legal technology. So can you share your insights and experience of while working at Andritz about how these tools have helped your day-to-day job?
Yeah, so I think one of the good parts that have happened in Andritz, and I'll give a lot of credit for our group general counsel for this, is that we've been one of the very early adopters of technology to review our work. We've been we've been demanding more than what machine learning and what the machines could do. I think it's only now that we are seeing products being developed what we wanted from AI. Since last 5 to 7 years, I would say there's been so many talks, 7, 8, 10 years, on how machine learning, on how AI can help make legal review better, especially in a company like Andritz, which is, like you said, 2,000 page documents, and lawyers may miss something and it is sometimes very boring to review them. We've been wanting to adopt legal technology to ease out the work of our lawyers since long. And we've had various stints and briefs of that. We've attended some large conferences world over. We've talked to some service providers. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times we've seen that people have promised more than the technology could give for a large amount of time. But it is only now, after your large language models have come up in a manner that we see through ChatGPT, through MS Copilot, where we are seeing that many of these promises are now getting realized by help of these tools. I mean, just to let you know, since last at least 7, 8, 10 years, Andritz has been trying to involve a lot of these vendors globally, and we've been talking to some of the biggest players everywhere on these issues. Even now, we are part of one of the pilot projects for Microsoft, where they have given very few licenses to some of the select companies of the world to test their AI-based Copilot system, MS Copilot, for Microsoft 365. And we are one of the early adopters. And I'm lucky that within Andritz, which has around 30,000 employees, there are 300 licenses. And I'm one of the licensees who's testing that. How does it help in our legal review better? How does it make our task better? And I would say technology is really improving. We see a lot of things happening which we could not have imagined even as early as 2 years back, which is helping a lot of our presentations, which is helping a lot of these boring tasks. I mean, one of the boring tasks is to summarize the document and show it to the business heads and various committees at place. Technology is really helping in that. You upload a document, you give a command, a whole presentation is made out of it. With AI, machine learning, actually taking down those extracts and making slides for you. Some rules that you do not know, you give a command and those rules are there at your fingertips, incorporated in your document, not just, the old time search of searching those rules, and all that Google could do was to give you a PDF of those rules or a web page of those rules. Now the applicable rules are inserted in the document where they should be. So I think a lot is happening, and we are doing a lot together with some of the largest vendors of the world, Luminance, Microsoft, Thoughtrovers, and maybe it's not best to name a lot of these vendors, but some of the cutting edge technologies we've been working on: legal review process, document generation process, summarizing, creating presentations, creating templates, which help not only for our sales review, but for the legal department, can then be eventually rolled out to the sales department, for example, so that they don't need to come to legal department only, but make an effective offer, but make an effective communication, even though they have not, gone ahead and consulted an in-house legal team. And the legal team can then work on the more productive, more analytical things and help, to the company save a lot of costs through these.
Right. All of them are great ideas. And, we'll dig a little deeper into what are the potential uses of AIs beyond, contract review and contract generation. Because whenever we talk about AI, contract review is definitely the number one use case people talk about. But I want to understand, and this is something I'm trying to learn, what is a good contract review, right? Because a lot of time as lawyers, right? Because I spend a lot of time explaining what lawyers want to engineers, right? And sometimes the difficulty that I'm having is what constitutes as a good contract or good legal review for a lawyer?
Yeah, and I think the question is very difficult because the more technology is improving, the more ingenious people are becoming in avoiding that. For example, you can train a technology, a software to review a contract and tell you what the limitation of liability should be. So you can feed in some language and you can tell, and wherever, the old technology till maybe 2 years back was that they would try to look for these words of limitation of liability. Wherever they were, they would extract them out and they would show you that they are. But unfortunately, legal review doesn't work that way, because the moment we know this is possible, some lawyer sitting on the other side would then draft it in a manner that you wouldn't get the words limitation of liability in one go, for example. They would draft it very cleverly so you asked me, just to go back on that, what is a good review? A good review would be, what your risk appetite is. Everybody knows what their company's risk appetite is.
Right.
A good review will comprise of taking out all the risks,
right?
What all the other risks in a document, and then to map them with your risk appetite, the company's risk appetite. I can take so much of a risk in this clause. I cannot go beyond.
Right.
I can have, a max of 100% liability cap. I cannot go beyond it. I can have some kind of liquidated damages or penalties. I cannot go beyond. I think that is a good review. And then we go to the second level, where you have reviews which take into consideration the impact of day-to-day working. For example, I can have a contract with Australian law as governing law, but my AI should be able to tell me that such contracts have had a very bad fallout in the past under Australian law, and it will be better to choose English law rather than Australian law, for example, because of XYZ reasons, because there's been more penalties in Australia, these provisions may be more onerous rate in Australia, and so on and so forth. So the first part which many people started doing till now was extraction. For them, the review meant, I will extract all of these relevant clauses, give it to lawyers, and then the lawyers will do a second level review and try to modulate the language according to the risk appetite of the company. I think the good review, and where I would like review to continue improving with the help of AI, would be to incorporate not just first better extract, because we are seeing everyday clauses being made in a language, being drafted in a language which are hiding all of this. So you would have some leverage, some word somewhere, some line somewhere, which is very critical, and it's just hidden, and it's very difficult for machines to catch that line that, yes, this is also increasing my liability, or this is putting an additional obligation, or so on and so forth. What I would really want to see in future is how real life analytics is then incorporated there. And actually the softwares are able to, not just extract documents and suggest language, but also suggest me what works and does not work in the real world, or where there have been, some bad cases on this, and what can be a bigger risk that a company can have.
Wow. Great insights there. So this was the first part of our podcast with Mr. Brijesh Anand. Stay tuned for the second part.